today. And now I understand that you have 3 members who have completed their pathways levels, Omer, at Earthgay, and Aleph. Congratulations to the 3 of you for being successful so far in your journey as Toastmasters and for completing those pathways levels. And I see today we're also going to have an icebreaker by Murat. And I'm looking forward to icebreaker. Icebreakers are, oh, they're such a fantastic way to start your Toastmasters journey, because this is where you get to introduce yourself to to your Toastmasters family here in your club, and you want them to know a little bit about you. Now, just because you're giving an icebreaker and you're giving a little bit of information about yourself doesn't mean that your folks here in your club are going to learn everything there is about you, but you want to make sure that they at least learn a little bit about you. And when they do learn something about you, hey, that's the opportunity that you get to thank them for listening when you tell them about yourself. And that's the title of this little talk we're going to have this morning. Thank you for listening when I tell you about myself. And what this originally starts out as, it's a marriage, it's a combination of the speech giver or the presenter and the speech evaluator, and how that marriage or that combination can help you grow in your Toastmasters journey. I'll tell you a little story. My first icebreaker, way back in 2009, my first icebreaker, I looked at the requirements of the speech, and it said, okay, you need to speak at least between 4 to 6 minutes. And I said to myself, okay, 4 to 6 minutes, that's going to be easy. I can do that. I graduated from college with a degree in theater arts. So I didn't have a problem speaking in front of people. It was going to be so easy. So I got my notes together. I wanted folks to know where I was from and how I wound up in Alabama. And I just got up in front of the lectern and I spoke. And people were so receptive. And when I finished speaking, the timer said, yes, Judith, you spoke for 9 minutes and 42 seconds. And I was so proud of myself. I said, oh, I really beat that time. I beat that 4 to 6 minutes, no problem. What I did not know is that 4 to 6 minutes was the only time I was supposed to speak. It didn't matter that I went 5 minutes over. I was only supposed to speak 4 to 6 minutes. And you know what I didn't do before I did my icebreaker? I didn't have a conversation with the person who was going to evaluate me. Had I had that conversation ahead of time, I might have been clued in that this was the goal, that your goal was 4 minutes and speak for 2 more minutes to reach the outside, and that was it. So you've got to fit all that information in that length of time. Well, yes, I was a little embarrassed about that 9 minute and 42 second speech icebreaker, but I learned something. I learned that my evaluator would have been there to help me, to guide me going through that beginning speech and all the other projects that we would do going forward. Now, I noticed that you've got like 4 speakers on your program today. And I hope that they have had the opportunity to have a conversation with their evaluator going forward. Your evaluator is not just there to mark off the things that are shown on the evaluator list. The evaluator blocks show things that you excelled at And then the next box shows something you might want to work on or things that you need to improve. And then that third box shows things that you might want to challenge yourself with going forward. Well, there's a little bit more to the evaluation process than that. And having that conversation with your evaluator ahead of time can really be beneficial. For instance, sometimes I like to pack a lot of stuff in my speeches. I want to give you everything from beginning to end, how I felt, what the day looked like, what my dog was doing while I was trying to write a speech. I want to give so many little points that I overwhelm my audiences sometimes. So I like to get to know my evaluator and give them some information about what kind of improvement I'm looking for. And when you reach your level 2s and your level 3s in your pathways projects, this is a good time to really hone in and focus in on what you want to accomplish, aside from things you did well, things you can improve, and things that will help challenge you. For instance, one of my things when I go to speak with my evaluator is, hey, did I put in too much information? Did I kind of go on a roller coaster or go outside of what I was trying to let the folks know about? Do I need to edit my speech more? Were there things in there that weren't necessary for me to reach my end goal? So a lot of times that's what I'll ask my evaluator to look for. Look for ways that I can clean up my speech or clean up the things that I want folks to know when I am presenting. There are other things that you can look for, and as far as presenting and having a conversation with your evaluator. Perhaps you want to work on not using notes. Or maybe you want to use more hand gestures or more defined movement if you're giving a speech in person. If you are doing something online, let them know. Make sure that your glasses don't reflect the ring light or your hand gestures are visible because you're only visible from the chest up and not the whole body. Things that you really want to hone in on depending on the media in which you are presenting. What do you want to accomplish with this speech? I see we've got easy budgeting tips today. Now, that one I'm really going to stay for, because you want to know budgeting and saving your money and making sure that things are available to you in the future. Those are tips that all of us can use. Some of them we may know, and some of them it would help if we were like reminded of them. So when we look at that speech today, are we really getting easy tips? Or is it something I'm going to have to use a spreadsheet to work on? So we want to know those easy budgeting tips. And hopefully it's going to be things that we'll be able to keep with us going forward. So this is something that speaker might want to discuss with their evaluator going ahead of time. Were they really easy, or were there some that were just a little bit too hard to explain right now? And I also see that we've got teachers in our lives. Well, by the time you get to reach a certain age, excuse me, by the time you get to reach a certain age, you may have had a number of teachers that have influenced you going forward. And don't forget, you also have mentors who are teachers as well. So are we going to be looking at just people who were standing in front of us in the classroom? Or are we going to address those mentors that we have, like you may have in your Toastmasters club? How are they affecting your life? How did they help you progress? When you have a speech that you're going to present and you have an evaluator, you really want to have those conversations before you present. And maybe that will also help you clean and have a clean and clear progression when you are giving a speech. Now, not to say that anything is there, but when you are giving that evaluation or when you are composing that evaluation, that is where those peak listening skills have got to come in. That way, your speaker can actually really thank you for listening when they tell you who they are. Usually, we try to do that, as a matter of fact, with the icebreaker speech. But every time we give a presentation, my fellow Toastmasters, we are letting our club members and those who are listening, we're letting them know a little bit more about ourselves. I see that, for instance, going back to that easy budgeting tips, that means that person is concerned with handling money. And I don't know if that's part of their job or if that's just things that they have learned along the way, but they're giving you some insight into their personality and teachers that you've had along the way. Well, that's going to tell you another little bit about the person giving that speech. We want to make sure that when we are the evaluator, we're actually listening to what they're trying to tell us, what they're trying to, in what kind of feelings that the speaker is trying to give us, and how we are going to react to that presentation. I want to tell you another little thing too. That marriage that I talked about between the speaker and the evaluator, where there are some other people that are involved when you're looking at having people listen and understanding when you tell them who you are. I know that we've got a timer here today. And the timer is probably looking at saying, okay, so she's spoken for 10 minutes already. So, and I'm going to give her the red at this time and the green at this time and the yellow at this time. But you also want to think about, if you're a timer, how much time did the person spend during their opening, during their introduction, laying out what they were going to tell you? If you're listening, you can tell the transition between the beginning of someone's speech and the body of someone's speech. And maybe if the transition is really clear, when they are getting ready to end their speech. How much time did I spend in my opening and introducing myself or telling you the topic that I was going to speak on today? How much time did I spend explaining to you why this topic was important, or what kind of information you gleaned from the topic? And as we're winding down, how long did I spend recapping what I said and giving you that clear and concise conclusion to my presentation today? These are things that the timer can help the speaker with as well. If I spend a whole lot of time setting up my speech and then didn't spend that much time on the body and explaining what I was going to do, and then tried to put all of that and rushed my ending, that might not have been the best use of my time that day. So the timer can also influence and give some input as to how the speaker progressed, or how the speaker can progress going forward. And there's another person that's important as well that can contribute to the development of the speaker, and that's the grammarian or the odd counter, or however you name those folks in your club. The odd counter, the grammarian, or the person with the word of the day. These people have some bona fide interests in the speaker. The grammarian may think about maybe there was some really nice turns of phrases or some really pretty words that the speaker used that day, and that really highlighted what they were speaking on. That's something that you might note or might want to write down, that the speaker had very fluid fluid words coming out that affected and really honed in on and pinpointed exactly what the speaker was saying. These are things you can listen for as a grammarian as well. All of those things can go into a concise and pinpointed evaluation for the speaker to help them grow going forward. And by the time they're reaching level 4 and maybe level 5, when there's a project out there that says preparing to speak professionally, or maybe a level 5 lessons learned, or even those other projects that are on those higher pathways levels, that you will gain momentum into completing successfully by having this kind of information at your fingertips when you are in levels in 2 and 3. I tell you, there are so many things that you can gain when you have that symmetry going between the speaker and the evaluator, and to an extent, the timer and the grammarian. All of you gather together to form a really cohesive entity to help each of us progress. The speaker is there to help with the listening skills of the evaluator. What are you really hearing when that person is speaking and telling you a bit about themselves? When you're in the timer position, what is that person really telling you, and how much time did they spend on the really important parts that you're going to remember? Or when you're the grammarian, how did they speak? Were those words that they used, were they appropriate for the event? Did they really color the outlook of what you're trying to present? Maybe there were some other words that might have been a little bit more beneficial when you're talking and speaking going ahead. But when you are completing your speech and you're sitting down and you're ready for those evaluations to come through and for those observations to come through, and you hear that, oh yeah, they understood that I love dogs. Oh yeah, they understood that I have a really big pepper garden and I love working in my garden every day. Oh yeah, they really understood that I love to save money and I will not stop until I have all the money in the world. That's when your speaker can actually look at your club members and say, thank you for listening when I tell you about myself. That marriage between the speaker and the evaluator and the timer and the grammarian, oh, that is a match made that cannot be broken. And we should all honor the benefits that we all reap when we work together to improve not only our speaking skills, our listening skills, and the understanding that when someone speaks, no matter what the subject is, they are telling you about themselves. Now, I will open the floor to anyone that may have a question about what I just presented. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Judith. Dear fellow Toastmasters, do you have any questions?
No, I don't see any. You can use your raised hand or just unmute yourself and have at it.
Ne tür bir soru tam olarak mesela soralım?
I'm sorry, I can't.